There's a very, very dangerous trap that as gamblers, or indeed as any addicts, that we can fall into, which does help to perpetuate the addiction and helps us get into recovery, helps us to even build any sustained period of abstinence from whatever addiction it is we're suffering. And that's what I want to talk about in today's video. Firstly, just want to say hi, hope you're keeping safe, hope you're keeping sane. Sorry it's been a little while since I posted my last video. Had quite a lot going on, but needless to say, I'm doing all right. You'll see another video come out at the same time as this, which is about a new challenge I'm undertaking. So give that a click, give it a watch if you're interested. It's not about gambling per se, but it might be something that rings true with quite a lot of you guys. But watch this video first, and then maybe give that one a bit of a look. And very, very quickly, thank you to everyone for their support, liking, subscribing, continue to support the channel, to my new Patreons, Angelina and Caroline, who I very much appreciate you signing up. Link is in the description below. I'm going to start putting some additional content on the Patreon. Like I say, I didn't think anyone would actually sign up for it, so now they have. I feel like I will do something a little bit extra just to say thank you to those people who choose to support me in that way. Right, that shameless bit of self-promotion over with. Let's crack on with the subject of today's video. Now, this is, I would say, a video of two halves. It's unscripted, but it has got a fairly depressing front end. But to counteract that, towards the end of the video, there will be a shining light, a bit of a positive spin on what I'm about to talk about. I'm going to talk about this trap, this addiction trap that I've fallen into in the past, and I'm going to relate to it as from the perspective of a gambler. However, it's fairly likely that this will apply to anyone with virtually any addiction: alcohol, recreational drugs, cigarettes, whatever it is. This is a trap that we tend to find ourselves not necessarily falling into, but ending up in by default. We often live up to the way we characterize ourselves. If you characterize yourself as a gambler or a gambling addict, then you shall forever be so while you carry around the weight of that characteristic. I spoke many moons ago about the label degenerate, and how sometimes we can fall into the trap of labeling ourselves as an addict, as a degenerate, as a loser, as a no-hoper, because labeling ourselves as such not only gives us some form of character, it gives us a personality, it also gives us an excuse and a get-out clause for behaving in certain ways, for indulging in destructive behaviours. If I was just Phil, and I went and lost loads of money in a machine in the pub, people would turn around and go, well, what an idiot. Why did you do that for? But if I am self-appointed, self-labelled Phil the degenerate loser, gambler, addict, okay, people would look at me and go, oh, well, that's just Phil being Phil. And it somehow becomes part of your personality. And whilst this is something you initially want to portray to other people, to maybe get left alone, so people, yes, judge you once rather than judging you every time you do something stupid, it's ultimately a label that you end up carrying around for yourself. And if we label ourselves as something, then we will inevitably live up to our own labelling. We will live up to our own definition of ourselves. So you label yourself as a drunken gambling degenerate, you will become and you will remain a drunken gambling degenerate. And that's the hook of the trap. You label yourself and you convince yourself that that is all you are. I am a gambling addict, therefore that characterises every bit of myself. And particularly with gambling, you will find you end up at very low points. You will end up at a point where you have very limited resources, you have very few opportunities, and while resources I mainly mean money, but you also have very few opportunities. You have little room for progression in life, and be that in your career, in relationships, whatever, because your life is dominated by this addiction. So what do? Well, if we took a step back, what we would suggest you do is take whatever limited resources you have, either currently or coming in, whatever small glimmers of relationships, whatever job you have, and you would work at each and every one of those positive things that you have left in your life in order to dig yourself out of the position you're in. We use them as building blocks to build a better long-term future for ourselves, and ultimately we would get out of this hole, out of this trap that we are in. However, quite often, as we've labelled ourselves as degenerate, no-hoper gamblers or drinkers or whatever it happens to be, Because we have that complete lack of self-esteem, zero self-esteem, right? We've crushed our own dreams and hopes, and any positive facet of our character has been dwarfed by this self-identification as a degenerate or as a gambler. We feel there is no hope of using these very, very small positives, these good things we have left in our lives, as building blocks. What we then do is we use whatever small amount of resource we have, and be that money, time, whatever, we use whatever small resource we have to the end of immediate gratification. Immediate gratification helps us to kick the can down the road. If we have, no hope of forwarding this month's rent, if we have no hope of getting that promotion because we've been late so many times, if we're having constant arguments with our partner and we know that the relationship's on its way out, then rather than sort of try and take the few glimmers of hope we have in those situations and use them as a single brick in building a better future, what we'll do is we'll just kick the can down the road. We'll push those problems further away. We know we're doomed. We know we've screwed up. We know things aren't going to get any better. So just, do what you have to do now to get through the day, to make ourselves feel better, to blank out and to escape from the problems that we currently have. And we'll worry about the problems we currently have later, disregarding the fact that we do still have things going for us. If you have a roof over your head, maybe your rent's late. If you have a job, okay, maybe at the moment your job prospects are minimal, your prospects for promotion are minimal. Maybe you're still in a relationship, but it's hanging by a thread. You still have those things in your life, and you can build upon those things. Yes, it's going to take work. Yes, it's going to take, in the terms of in relationships, a lot of humility and a lot of hard work and persistence to convince your other half that you've changed or that you can be better. If at work you've been slack and you've been late and maybe you're on a final warning, it's going to take a while to convince your employer that you can turn up on time, that you can be a productive member of the team, and that at some point in the future you may be eligible for a promotion. You've got a few quid in the bank, just enough to sort of tide you over. Well, if you've got some form of income coming in, keep it. Use it as the basis to build some sort of financial safety net, some sort of financial security. But what we do, and the trap that we've set ourselves, is we don't. We scrap off the relationship. We think, well, the job's pretty much going to get myself fat sacked anyway, and we use that limited bit of money, that limited bit of resource we have left, to indulge in instant gratification, normally the addiction that's got us in this position in the first place, so gambling, drinking, drugs, whatever it happens to be. And we use that resource just to kick the can down the road, to mentally bury our heads in the sand, to avoid addressing the problems that we have, when actually some of those problems may not be terminal. They may be solvable. So if you're watching this and you feel like, you're almost at rock bottom, to take heed in that word almost. Whilst you have friends, any kind of friends, relationships, a roof over your head, some form of income, any form of capital, anything, look at what you've actually got and think about how you can build that, rather than fritter anything you've got left away in just ignoring, burying your head in the sand, ignoring your problems, and just kicking that can down the road. I do hope that makes sense. Like I say, thank you very, very much for continuing to support the channel. I know I've not made any videos for a while, and now I've put 2 up at once, just like buses on. They only feel videos sometimes. I'm trying to make a few more. If you haven't seen my other video, I'm embarking on a little bit of a challenge for myself. So maybe go and give that a watch. Let me know your thoughts. Like I say, thanks for everyone for their support. And there is a Patreon link below. Like I say, I'm going to try and start, probably from next week or so, start putting a few additional videos on there, or a few extra little bits, just as a means to say thank you for those people who have decided to support me in that way. But for everyone else, stay safe, stay sane, and I shall speak to you all soon. All the best.